Today, we're going to talk about the shifting environment that we've been seeing in the cryptocurrency market, especially as we saw Bitcoin peak earlier in January at $17,000. And since then, it's just been going straight down. The market has been taking a much more bearish tone. We are sitting right at $9,000, which nowhere near as exciting as when we reached over 9,000 the first time. So a lot of people are concerned. Some people think this is a coordinated attack against Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, that it's all FUD. Other people think that there is legitimate risk here and we might be seeing a serious shift into a bear market for cryptocurrencies. So I just thought I would lay down my thoughts a little bit here as to whether or not we are shifting into a new era for cryptocurrencies. And I think we kind of are, because more and more people that are, I want to say, important, relevant, powerful within government, within business, within all sorts of different organizations within the world that have power. We are seeing much more focus on cryptocurrencies as of lately. We have this committee that's coming up that's going to talk about virtual currencies. We have the G20 countries wanting to talk about regulatory issues for cryptocurrencies across the world. We had this situation recently where the finance minister of India was talking about the idea that the government does not recognize cryptocurrencies as legal tender and will take measures to eliminate the use of them in illicit activities or as part of the payment system. And this last statement here kind of concerns me. Of course, some of the businesses that are operating within India say that this is business as usual. But again, this last statement is a little bit concerning. And I know that there's some people that are out there saying that the articles that you see online in the media are complete FUD and they're trying to mislead you. And I disagree with that assessment. I think that oftentimes what's happening here is people are interpreting this however they want to interpret it. The people that are bullish on Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are saying that it's FUD, and the people that are bearish on cryptocurrencies are saying that this is a clear sign that they're going to eliminate or ban cryptocurrencies. I really don't know what this is, and I think that's how most people should be reacting to it. We don't know what actions are going to be taken against cryptocurrencies, but I do know that people are far too quick to dismiss things as FUD, and if that's who you are, it's kind of a pet peeve for me. It kind of pisses me off when people use the word FUD, or they say, this is FUD, this is FUD, this is FUD, when these are really just facts, and this is what people have said. And yes, we are going to see different interpretations for the same thing. But what you're saying when you say India is not banning cryptocurrencies, that's like the opposite of FUD. It's FOMO. So I just want people to realize that if you're one of the people that's just interpreting this in a way that favors your opinion or your viewpoint, then don't do that, because it's actually, in my opinion, really bad representation of people who are invested in cryptocurrencies. Not that you can really save that reputation, because there's a lot of idiots who are invested in this field, unfortunately. But we are seeing situations like this. Again, this whole factor FUD idea, where people are calling out all of it as FUD, despite the fact there are some serious regulatory risk here. I don't think it's that important as many people might think it is in terms of what India ends up doing with it. They've been back and forth on their statements on cryptocurrencies, generally have not been the most positive on it. So this is a situation in which I really think the main reason the market is moving down as much as it is just because it was completely overvalued, and we are also seeing a bunch of headlines come in that are pushing the price down. That's all there is to it. We saw Bitcoin become overextended. I mean, if you look at this run for Bitcoin, it has been absolutely absurd. I mean, we really, at the beginning of 2017, we're sitting at like $1,000, right? Yeah, right around the $1,000 at the beginning of 2017. And we peaked at $20,000. I mean, 20 times in an asset that's worth billions is a lot, okay? Especially for something that was struggling, especially for something that, we're still dealing with scalability issues, we're still dealing with corporate governance issues. There's all sorts of issues that are associated with Bitcoin that we still haven't solved yet. And I really am of the opinion that Bitcoin has been overvalued for quite some time. So this is a fair correction within the price. However, even though I still think it's a bubble at this price right now, and that's important to make that distinction, I still think it's a bubble. I think it's a good buy opportunity, and some people just simply cannot understand how I can think it's a bubble and it's a good buy opportunity. Well, one is a more long-term look at the market and one's more of a short-term look at the market. I still don't think the bubble's over yet. Of course, it's hard to make that as a declaration because bubbles are notoriously difficult to understand when they pop. Oftentimes, there's going to be a little bit of a bear market that follows after a bubble pops. So if we continue to see Bitcoin edge lower and come down to like $3,000 and stay at those lower levels for a little while, then yeah, the bubble definitely had popped at that point. I don't think that's going to happen, and I'm still committed to buying Bitcoin at $8,300 for me personally. I don't know if it's going to come down to that level. It's unfortunate if it doesn't, but that's the level that I set for myself. So that's what I'm going to stick to. So my viewpoint on Bitcoin really hasn't changed in this time. I still think it's a bubble, but I still think there's a good opportunity to buy into it at around that 8,000 to 8,500 level. Personally, I'm going to be committing at 8,300. And the reason why, again, is because there was a lot of people that really were focusing on that level. I think there's going to be a lot of support at that level. Of course, this is all sort of technical mumbo jumbo, but I think it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. When a lot of people look at the same level, they end up it just sort of ends up happening because people think that level is relevant, and it just sort of perpetuates itself. So I still think 8,000 is a good level. It's one of those levels that if I was talking to a friend, I would feel comfortable recommending it to them. Even, I usually don't make recommendations to anybody else, whether it's friends or family, just because of the fact that I don't like being held accountable if something goes wrong, because really you should be making your own investment decisions. But in this particular situation, I do think Bitcoin at 8,000 is a fair deal. It may not be profitable for you in the short term, but I do think that eventually you will be able to make a decent amount of profit off of it, because I don't think that Bitcoin is done with the bubble yet. I still think that cryptocurrencies have a lot of hype behind them. I think a lot of people are still talking about them, and especially if we start to see yet another recovery in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, I think people are going to jump on again because it's like the next wave for them. So I think that's going to be an interesting concept and should be interesting to see whether or not that ends up playing out. But that's my thought. So for now, I will be buying into Bitcoin if it comes down to that $8,300 level, and I will buy a decent amount of it. I'm not sure what I will do if it goes even lower, if it goes to, 7,000, 6,000, 5,000. I will provide updates if that happens. It is important to be ready for a situation like that to happen. I really want to stress this because so many people are like, Bitcoin will never be this low ever again. That's so nonsense. You don't know what's going to happen with Bitcoin next. Nobody does. You just make your best estimate based off of what you see in the market, based off of probabilities, based off your understanding of market psychology, and that's it. You just take a bet. It's an educated bet. That's what you should be thinking of. One of the things I recommend to people when friends or family come to me and they ask me, should I buy into Bitcoin? Am I too late? Or, should I buy into some of these other cryptocurrencies? And I tell them, would you ever ask somebody else when you should buy a lottery ticket? And the answer, usually they kind of pause for a second and they say no. And the same situation is true here for cryptocurrency. So if you're one of those people that think that Bitcoin will never be this low again, there's no certainties in markets. There's only probabilities. And I do think that there's going to be situations where there's scenarios that are certainly possible where Bitcoin crashes way lower than this. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin come down to 3,000, 2,000. But that, in my opinion, is a low probability scenario. And I definitely am of the opinion that the higher probability scenario is that we see a bounce back in Bitcoin. And I think that 8,000 is a good level for me. So that's my opinion. Pick the level that you're comfortable with. Again, for me, if I buy it at 8,000 and it goes to zero, which almost certainly isn't going to happen, but even if it did happen, it wouldn't be a problem for me because I'm well diversified. And this is a perfect example of why you shouldn't be putting all of your money into cryptocurrencies. If you don't have any investments in stocks, if you don't have any investments in fixed income, although I'm not a huge fan of fixed income recently, but it's becoming better. At least the interest rates are starting to rise here. But in general, if you don't have other investments, when markets like this happen in cryptocurrencies, it's going to feel awful for you because you have nothing offsetting the losses in your portfolio. I really recommend for you to make sure that you're well diversified and really make sure that you have different asset classes, because that's going to help you feel a little bit more secure when events like this happen. And that's one of the secrets to becoming or remaining calm during situations in which cryptocurrencies are coming down, and we have seen, a 50% decline in a month and a half. The way that you stay calm in markets like these is just not to be overexposed to them, so that you don't feel like, you're losing too much relative to your net worth every single day. For me, this is actually interesting to watch because, number one, it's an opportunity for me to get in cheaper, but number two, it's also interesting for me to watch just to see how this plays out. Because I think, the market psychology of cryptocurrencies is definitely one of the most interesting bubbles that we've had in a long time. And it should be interesting following to see what regulators do with it. Should be interesting to see what businesses try to do with it. And it should also be interesting to see what the developers within the cryptocurrency communities end up trying to do while all of this other nonsense is going on. So we might be entering a new era for cryptocurrencies. It's certainly possible. But I still think that there are opportunities in this market. When you see a sea of red like this, there usually is going to be opportunities for you to get in on certain cryptocurrencies that you may have missed out on in the past. So I just wanted to talk about that briefly and the idea of whether or not the bubble has popped. Personally, I think it's a lower probability that it's popped than not, but should be interesting to see what happens next over the next, I don't know, maybe 3 months or so.